You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
Our friends at the Lutheran Witness have a story to share with you today. We'll get to that story in just a moment, thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
We're going to hand the mic over to Reverend Roy Askins, Executive Editor of the Lutheran Witness.
Greetings, I'm Roy Askins, Executive Editor of the Lutheran Witness. I'm here in Wittenberg with Archbishop Joseph Ochola Omolo, the Archbishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya. How are you doing, Bishop Omolo?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Did I get your name correct on that one?
You did, exactly.
Excellent. Bishop Omolo had the opportunity to present to the attendees of the International Church Relations Conference that's being hosted here in Wittenberg about his church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya. We're going to say the ELCK, correct?
Yes.
Let's start, Bishop Omolo, with the history of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya. When did mission work in Kenya begin, and what's kind of the genesis of that mission work in Kenya?
The Evangelical Lutheran Church in Kenya, ELCK, started in 1948 by the missionaries from Sweden. So the Swedish Lutheran Mission, as the mission was called, sent a missionary called Martin Lundström in February 1948 to Western Kenya in a place called Itirio in Kisii.
And missionary Lundström worked there until 1964, you said?
Yes,
right?
Exactly. That is when he retired and went back to his country.
Now, the Swedish Lutheran Mission weren't the only people working in Kenya at the time, right?
Exactly. When the mission started, it was only the Swedish Lutheran Mission, but they were later joined by other mission organizations from Scandinavia or Nordic countries.
What other countries were involved?
There was two from Finland. They were joined by a group called the Swedish Lutheran Evangelical Association of Finland.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mission organization made up of the Swedes who live in Finland. And they were also joined by LIF, which is Lutheran Evangelical Association of Finland. These are the Finnish people who do the mission work from Finland. They were also joined by a group from Norway called the Norwegian Lutheran Mission, that is coming from Norway, and then they joined later. Yes.
So the result was there were a number of different mission starts in Kenya that eventually were brought into one church body.
Exactly.
Right? Tell me about the formation of that church body.
The Lutheran Church of Kenya, actually having been started by the Swedish Lutheran Mission, SLM, so these are the mission boards also joined. Now, when they came, they divided themselves. For example, the Swedish Lutheran Mission worked around Kisii area among the Gusi people. When the Swedish Lutheran Evangelical Association of Finland came, LIF, they were working among the Luo area. But when LIF came, LIF was working within the entire church. When the NLM came, the Norwegian Lutheran Mission, they went to work on the northwest part of the country among the Pokot and the people living to the northwest of the country.
So who brought all of these? Which group was responsible for bringing all of these together into one church? Was it kind of all of them together decided this needed to happen, or what was kind of the impetus for coming together into one Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya?
Actually, it seems because all of them come from the Nordic country, they kind of knew each other. The SLM, they knew LIF and SLIF and NLM. So in a way, one way or another, one mission board invited another one. But when they came, the good thing, they came under the umbrella of ELCK. So the other mission boards came after the SLM had established this church. The church that got its independent in 1963, then it became the Lutheran Church of Kenya. So even if the other mission organizations called their friends to join, they join under the ELCK.
Very good. Tell us a little bit about the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya now. How many congregations, pastors, members? What's the life of the ELCK right now?
Right now, the church has really expanded to many parts of the country. Actually, when the mission started, it started in the rural area, in the Kisii, a place called Sunika. But after that, the church expanded to the cities, to the urban areas. And now the church is found almost in most big cities in Kenya. For example, our head office is in Nairobi, which is the capital city. We have churches in Mombasa, we have churches in Kisumu, Eldoret, Kitale, many big cities of the church. Now, the church has expanded. Now we have 350,000 members spread all over in the country. We have 9 dioceses with 9 bishops working. 2 bishops have retired. The first bishop passed on 1 year ago. Mm-hmm. Then the second bishop, who was the first archbishop, when the church accommodated the apostolic succession polity, mm-hmm. Is still living, but he's retired now. I am the third bishop.
Okay.
Yes.
So give us a little bit about your history. How did you become a pastor and a bishop?
It's a long story, but after finishing high school, I worked in our city, and after some time, then I got a call to start helping in our church as a helper, mm-hmm. the lay leader or the lay preacher. Mm-hmm. So there, we didn't have a trained evangelist, but we had a pastor. Mm-hmm. Now, in our context, a pastor would be a parish pastor taking care of over 3 to 8 congregations.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a lot of congregations.
Yeah, but they are relatively smaller because many of the congregations are open at a walking distance. So in our congregation, Rarieda congregation, we didn't have an evangelist. So after I was catechized, the pastor there asked me if I would be helping, sometimes reading in the church as an elder and leading some Bible, because finding people who could read and help was also an issue. Mm-hmm. Then the pastor said to walk with me over this. And then once pastor asked me if I would consider studying mm-hmm. to be an evangelist or a pastor. And I said, oh yeah, that's something I would want to be, because I really did well in the high school in the religious studies. Mm-hmm. So I joined the theological college in Matongo in August 1988.
Oh, goodness.
So I trained as a pastor, and in the year 90, then I graduated at the end of the year mm-hmm. as a pastor. Mm-hmm. And in 1991, I was ordained a pastor, and I was placed into a congregation or a parish. Actually, in our context, a pastor is given a parish. Mm-hmm. A parish comprises of those congregations, and the pastor is the oversight. Mm-hmm. So when I was posted as the parish pastor in one of the local parishes, but during my studies, the professors at the school had already recommended that I would go back to teach. Mm. So after being there for a half a year, I was brought back to the seminary to teach the other classes. But then it happened that I needed some better education than those who I was to teach. So they sent me to Norway, and I did my master's degree in Norway. And then the year 2000, I was sent to America to do my PhD. Then came back as a professor in the seminary. I taught there until the year 2008. Then I was called to the parish as a regional mm-hmm. bishop. of Lake Diocese.
Gotcha. And then it was from there to the Archbishop.
Yeah, there.
I want to go back to your presentation that you offered before these men here at this conference. And you mentioned something about liturgy and worship and the ELCK and a certain milestone that's very important for the ELCK, especially in 2013. Can you tell us about it real quick?
This is really very important. And as I said, our church was started by different mission organizations from Nordic countries, Scandinavia. These mission organizations, they had their tradition. Some of these mission organizations, they came from the mainline churches of Sweden and of Norway, and some of them have a low layman approach. So in these areas, they did not really encourage or teach more about the liturgy. So the worship was the way they could find it. Now, when our church started to get into the life of the liturgy, we wanted a united church. We didn't want a church holding different traditions of worship. So when our hymnal was translated, the Swahili one, in the year 2013, it was very important for us. And we have really, together with LCMS, made a milestone on uniting our church in the liturgical life.
That's wonderful. One last question here. We got about 30 seconds left. Can you tell me what's the heart and soul of the work and mission of the ELCK?
The gospel proclamation, the administration of the sacraments form the heart of the church of ELCK. But this is demonstrated in the life of the liturgy, in the daily worship that we do. As a developing country, we cannot ignore the diaconal work. So ELCK with LCMS is doing a lot of the mercy work, the diaconal work among the orphans, among the poor people, among the widows. And this blended together with the proclamation of the gospel has formed a tremendous good work for the church and grounded the gospel in its totality.
Thank you so much, Archbishop Amolo, for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, too.
Thanks to our friend, Pastor Roy Askins, Executive Editor of the Lutheran Witness, for sharing the story with us today. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
At Concordia University, Wisconsin, we believe you were created for a reason: to use your God-given gifts to help others, to live a life of self-sacrifice in a me-first world, to live a life that's uncommon. Whether you're taking one of 50-plus online programs or learning with us in person on the shores of Lake Michigan, you'll be equipped to make an uncommon impact. Learn more at cuw.edu. Concordia University, Wisconsin. Live uncommon.